So the stories that I hear about how my parents met is that my father was about 20 years old and my mother was about 15, and they met in a coffee shop near downtown in Mexico. And my father was drinking coffee with a few of his buddies, and my mother walked in and she sat in the opposite table of him. And from the first time my father laid his eyes on her, he knew he was the one. So he decided to make a move, and he asked for a strawberry milkshake, and he took her down to her table. And obviously my mother rejected. The nice thing about the story is that my father worked really hard to make my mother fall in love with him. So after a few years of dating, my father decided that it was time to get married. So he started working with his brother. He worked really hard so he could give my mother the wedding that she deserved. But it wasn't enough, so he had to go and talk with my mother's parents and ask them for help, and they absolutely agreed. So by the time the wedding was done, it was an amazing wedding, the kind of wedding most girls would only dream about. And I believe the song that they were dancing the first time in the wedding was The Way I Look Tonight by Frank Sinatra, which was my mother's favorite. So all their friends were there, all their families, all the hopes and expectations for a brand new life with the one you love. And that's pretty much it. That's the wedding. And if I could describe it the way my father tells me, it was magical. So that's pretty much it. So after a few years of marriage and one daughter, my mother got pregnant again, and it was of me. And when my father found out that I was on the way, he was really excited, because he always wanted a boy, because he played baseball like since he was a kid, and he wanted to teach his own kid to play baseball. So before they decided my name, my father thought of a really good name, which is Mishael. Why it's Mishael? Because 2 years before I died, I had a cousin, her name was Michelle, and my father decided that I should wear her name in her honor. So that's why my name is Mishael. After a few years of playing baseball, my father and I realized that I wasn't really good at that sport, so I tried something a little bit harder. So I got into playing hockey, and by the time I was 13, I was in the Mexican team, and we went to Quebec, Canada for the World Pee-wee tournament, which we ended in 3rd place. And it was a really amazing experience for me, because it was really fun. It was like I wished for my kid to be his childhood. And after that I grew a little bit older, and I had to go to Israel, because I always wanted to know about my roots, where I come from, what's my people like, what does a Jew stand for. So I went to Israel for about 8 months, and I was in the army there, like a social service, so to speak. And it was a really amazing experience, because by the time I came back to Mexico, I was in a whole other place. So after 8 months of being in Israel, I came back to Mexico, and the first thing that I got was a really sad news. The news was that my father was no longer living at home. He had some problems with my mom that they couldn't work out, and they were gonna get divorced. So I had nothing to do but accept my parents' decision and be a support for my little sister, which was the really hard part, because she didn't quite understand what was happening. Neither did I. So I had to pick pieces of every story, of everything, to find out that it just didn't work out. After I found out that my parents were getting a divorce, all my world crumbled, because they were my basis, and each one was grieving for the relationship, so to speak. So I started to get really bad grades at school, and in On top of that, a few years later, we found out that my mother was sick.
Anytime you feel the pain, hey Jude, refrain, don't carry.
And she had leukemia, and I didn't have my father's support or my mother's support because she was fighting the illness. So I started to wander in the world in different jobs that didn't quite fulfill my expectations. I had to do the high school in a different way, that is not the regular way, in a different system, and eventually, after some years, my mother recently, in November, she passed away.
You have found her, now go and get her. Remember to let her into your heart, and you can start to make it.
It was a really hard time for me. So I thought that I wasn't get out of the hole. It was a darkness I never felt before, and I never thought I got out. After my mom passed away, my world crumbled even more than I thought it would. I was surrounded by some kind of darkness because I quit school, I stopped hanging around with my friends, I stopped talking with my sisters, with my father, with everyone that surrounded me, and I locked myself in a world where I thought I had no hope of living. I had no expectations, not a thing. And between all the darkness, I saw a glimpse of the light. And the light that I'm speaking about, it's Ord. I found about Ord and all of their projects and the media center and the movie making workshops and everything, and I was so enthused because I always wanted to be a film director. So I applied for the school, and the only problem is that I didn't have the money to pay, so they gave me a scholarship. That's the most amazing thing, because they didn't know me and they gave it to me. So it was my one chance to make something of myself. And I got into school, I started studying really, really hard so I could get a nice job and hopefully someday give the life my father gave to my mom before everything went wrong. So now I'm working as a video editor in a publicity company, and it's really amazing how Ord didn't just teach me something, it really saved my life, and I got to thank them for this. So after all I've told you, my life, my ups, my downs, the only thing I got left to say is that I'm happy to say that I am about to start my first project, my first film. I am already getting all the equipment I need, and I'm really getting the support of Ord in this project. But what I want most is to have money. Why money? Because it's the only way I can repay Ord what have they done for me. And because I know that there are other people, other children, other kids like me when I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and Ord helped me, and I want to help Ord to help them. That's the whole idea of my life now. And I want to thank Ord for saving my life.
Red roses too, I watched them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Well, I see skies of blue, and I see clouds of white, and the brightness of day. I like the dark, and I think to myself, what a